Stop following my husband around.
On my way back from shopping, I suddenly felt a blow to the back of my head, and I collapsed to the ground. At the same time, I heard the screams of passers-by and sensed a crowd gathering. As my consciousness faded, the first image that came to mind was of my kind husband. By chance, I was taken to the hospital where my husband works.
Can you call my husband? He should be one of the doctors on duty.
I managed to ask the nurse who was treating me, unaware that this would trigger a major disaster. My husband, an obstetrician, and I, a home-based programmer, often had mismatched schedules, even after moving near the general hospital where he worked. His time away for conferences, clinics, and night shifts meant we barely spent any time together. I did feel lonely at times, but the rare moments we had together were precious. When we were together, he was always so kind to me. He even took a long break once to take me on a vacation. I met my husband at a mixer that I joined out of curiosity after a friend invited me. Attracted to his sincerity and kindness both in his work and towards others, I married him after a year of dating. I lost my parents early on, and my husband's parents had divorced and been estranged for a long time. Apparently, my in-laws both work at distant hospitals. Both my husband and I have few relatives and are busy with work. So we didn't have a wedding ceremony, just a photo shoot and a domestic trip. After being married for 2 years, despite our frequent mismatches, I was thinking about having children, considering my age.
Hey, Chris, maybe it's time we started thinking about having a child.
But I'm busy with work, and we can't rely on family help, so I worry it would all fall on you.
I work from home, so I can handle the housework and childcare. Plus, my brother is there if we really need help.
The only relative I had introduced to my husband was my brother, Jake, who lives alone in our old family home and works as a clerk in a law firm.
Isn't your brother out of town? It's not exactly a convenient distance.
Besides, I still want to enjoy our life, just the two of us, for a while longer. He often evaded the topic like this. What my husband said made sense, but still, as a married couple, I wanted us to build something together. I had felt this way for a while. Then one day, as I was returning home after finishing the grocery shopping for dinner, I received a call from my husband.
I'm sorry, the patient I'm overseeing is going into labor early. Looks like I won't be able to come home after all.
What? I bought all your favorite things?
Sorry, I have to go on that business trip as planned, but I'll stay at the hospital tonight.
I'll just come by in the morning to pick up my things. Disappointed, I managed to keep my composure, replied, and hung up the phone. We were supposed to have dinner together for the first time in days, but with childbirth, you never know what will happen.
I went all out shopping. What should I do now? Maybe I'll just freeze it.
As I walked through a quiet residential area, thinking about what to do, it happened. Suddenly, I felt a sharp blow to the back of my head. My vision flickered instantly and I gasped oddly.
What?
Staggering, I tried to look back, but my body wouldn't respond. Unable to identify the cause of the pain spreading through the back of my head, I collapsed right there.
It's your fault. Next time, you won't get off so easy. Stop following my husband around.
A woman's voice came from behind me. The voice was furious, filled with anger.
Who did this person do it? Why?
I thought I needed to call for help, but my consciousness cruelly faded rapidly. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. It was dark around me, and when I checked the time, the date was about to change. Regaining consciousness, I immediately pressed the nurse call button to summon someone. Several doctors and nurses explained the situation to me, and I finally grasped what had happened. I was struck by a woman on my way back from shopping and had lost consciousness. The woman who hit me was restrained by nearby residents and taken to the police. I couldn't see her face, but I don't recall doing anything to be resented by someone. Thinking about the woman's comments at that time, it seemed she knew me, which didn't quite fit the idea of a random assault. Thinking this, I suddenly felt scared and at the same time, I missed my husband. Fortunately, the general hospital I was brought to was my husband's workplace.
Could you please call my husband? He's Dr. White from obstetrics and should be on duty.
I just want to see him, even if just for a little. I stopped a nearby nurse and asked if it was possible to see my husband. I knew he was busy with a sudden delivery, but I hoped to at least catch a glimpse of him if possible. Sensing my anxiety, the nurse kindly nodded and said, "I'll check for you." However, within 10 minutes, she returned with a troubled look, saying, "It seems there's no doctor by the name of White in obstetrics."
What? What do you mean?
Confused, I asked her to check again for my husband. After searching the hospital's staff directory thoroughly, the nurse confirmed there was no doctor with the surname White. Eventually, she sympathetically said, "You must be very tired."
He said he couldn't come home because of a delivery today. If he's not here, where could he be?
Bewildered, I desperately reached out to my brother Jake. Despite it being late at night, he answered the phone and listened to my situation with a sense of gravity.
This sounds suspicious. You better investigate properly.
"I'm worried about your injury too. I'll take tomorrow off and come over," he said earnestly. When I told him about the hospital denying my husband was a doctor there, he responded gravely. True to his word, Jake arrived first thing the next morning. He efficiently handled the filing of a police report, communication with the police, and attempts to contact my husband.
Chris called. He wants to come visit you in the hospital. What should we do?
I was told this, but I couldn't bring myself to feel happy about it. Eventually, I decided to avoid speaking with my husband directly and had my brother handle it. He told him a fabricated story that I was on strict bed rest and couldn't have visitors. And he also kept the name of the hospital and my discharge date secret. My husband, who I had trusted just the day before. Yet, my distrust in him only grew. The woman's words, "Stop following my husband around," kept haunting me.
I hate to think it, but my husband, Chris, it couldn't really be him, could it?
Being attacked by a supposed random assailant and the discrepancies about my husband's workplace added to my anxiety. Fortunately, my injuries weren't severe, and I was able to leave the hospital after about 5 days. With my brother's help, I managed to regain some strength and headed straight to the police station from the hospital. Of course, it was to meet the woman who had injured me. Having filed a police report, I had to follow through with the legal proceedings.
You don't have to meet the assailant if you don't want to.
"I can introduce you to a lawyer through my connections," my brother suggested, trying to look out for me. But to dispel even a shred of doubt about my husband, I felt I needed to hear the truth directly from the woman.
I was so worked up at the time, I regret that I hit her,"
said the woman, who introduced herself as Jessica, and she was 8 months pregnant. Despite having attacked someone from behind, she seemed surprisingly meek when seen through the glass.
Why did you attack my sister?
Asked my brother who had accompanied me, trying to remain calm but clearly angry.
I can arrange for a lawyer immediately, and you will face the consequences, he stated firmly.
"I understand, but please, I'll take any punishment. Just don't follow my husband, Chris, anymore,"
Jessica pleaded through her tears. Hearing this was shocking, and hearing my husband's name made me frown silently.
Chris? You mean Chris White, my husband?
White is his maiden name. He's married to me now. He's Chris Smith.
Jessica stared at me intently, her tone harsh.
"You're the reason we've had to live apart for over half a year now, and with a baby coming soon."
Further discussion revealed that I was supposedly a stalker, obsessively following Chris, whom Jessica claimed as her husband. Originally, she was a nurse at the hospital where he worked, and had resigned due to her pregnancy. To keep me safe from harm, Chris sent me back to her parents' home, she said.
"You know, I felt bad about it, but after seeing all the photos of you two together on his phone."
Those were probably photos taken during our trips or on our anniversaries.
"He said they were all fake, that someone sent me photoshopped pictures. How terrible is that to make and send such things?"
Jessica sobbed, pleading her case, but I was just confused.
I'm the one who's married to Chris. We've been living together for 2 years.
I tried to explain. But it was as if she couldn't hear me. To her, I must have appeared as someone just spouting delusions.
"If you think I'm lying, why not check the public records?"
With those words, she refused any further meetings. Following her advice, we went straight to the municipal office. And that's when I realized that everything about my time with my husband was a sham. 3 days later, we requested another meeting with Jessica.
Chris should know I'm here.
Yet he hasn't come to see me even once. Are you the one keeping him away? Do you enjoy making us suffer? She expressed resentment towards me, but it was clear she lacked spirit. Poor thing, being pregnant and confined in a detention center must have worn her down.
I'm sorry, I was wrong.
I acknowledged deeply as I bowed my head to her. I then shared all the truth I had learned with Jessica and declared that I would withdraw the complaint. During our conversation, Jessica looked astonished and then downcast, seemingly unable to believe what was happening.
Let's handle the settlement negotiations for lawyers.
After that, I want Chris to receive appropriate punishment. The rest between you and him, I'll leave up to you, I suggested. At that, Jessica looked up, startled.
I'm really sorry. I will properly atone for the harm I caused you, and about that matter, please let me help, she offered.
It was 3 days later when I finally contacted my husband. By then, the settlement had been finalized, and Jessica had been released on bail.
I'm sorry for worrying you. It's all okay now.
I'm really glad. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I'll be home tomorrow.
The voice on the phone was the same as always. The gentle voice of my husband. Just a few weeks ago, I would have been desperate to hear his voice. I held back tears as I hung up the phone and prepared for what was to come. The next day, when my husband returned home with a gift, he embraced me as soon as he saw me and said, "I'm glad you're safe." But I immediately stopped him, saying, "Before anything, we need to talk."
Listen, Chris, the woman who attacked me said she was your wife.
As I started, I thought I saw a slight twitch in Chris's brow.
You met with the assailant. That's dangerous. You shouldn't meet directly with such unstable people.
How do you know she's dangerous?
Anyone who attacks someone out of the blue isn't right in the head, and...
I'm sorry I kept quiet, but actually, there is someone I suspect. Chris then looked serious and made me sit down on the sofa.
I didn't want to worry you, but I never thought she'd target you first.
He explained that recently he had been receiving frequent messages from an unfamiliar woman who believed she was his wife. She's trouble, he said.
That must have been tough for you.
I should have done something sooner.
Listen, I have a suggestion. Maybe you should go back to your parents' house for a while, or we should move somewhere else until this is all sorted out. My husband seemed genuinely concerned about my safety. However, the more I knew, the more I felt overwhelmed with anger and sadness.
By the way, when did your name change?
I asked, raising my voice a bit to forcibly change the subject. I couldn't stand to watch him lie so calmly anymore. At my signal, my brother and Jessica suddenly emerged from another room, startling my husband, who cried out.
Jessica Smith, the assailant who attacked me. You know her, right? She's your wife.
My husband avoided eye contact with me and instead stared at Jessica.
What? Why? She should still be in detention.
His slip of the tongue made him quickly cover his mouth.
My brother arranged a lawyer for her, and they coordinated her release.
While crossing his arms, my brother glared at my husband with a fierce look. My husband was sweating profusely, repeating, "It's not true, it's a misunderstanding."
I've heard everything from her. I've checked the public records too. Your name isn't Chris White. It's Smith now, isn't it?
It was only when Jessica pointed it out and I went to check at the municipal office that I learned the truth. I was never actually married to my husband. I remained single. Looking back, I never went with him to file our marriage application 2 years ago. He said, "Our schedules don't match, so I'll handle it," and I trusted him to submit it. It was careless of me not to notice for 2 years.
When I checked with the hospital, they said there was no doctor by that name.
Of course, because you're not Dr. White, you're Dr. Smith. According to Jessica, she and my husband registered their marriage 2 years ago as well. Her family owns a well-known private practice specializing in obstetrics in their local area.
So, you're Mr. Smith, the adopted son-in-law, destined to be the head of the clinic.
You weighed your options and chose to marry her because it was more beneficial, I accused him. My husband had been living a double life, using different surnames, keeping me as a mistress.
If you had found someone else, you should have just told me.
Why didn't you break it off 2 years ago? Did you just want a plaything? What were those 2 years for me? I intended to discuss this calmly, but tears streamed down my face. I felt utterly miserable. My brother confronted him aggressively. Explain yourself, what do you think you're doing with two women?
No, there's nothing shameful like having an affair, I have not done anything as despicable as that.
My husband shouted back, seemingly defensive.
I ended up loving both of you, it couldn't be helped.
He said this quite seriously. We were speechless, mouths agape, unable to respond for a while.
I fell in love with both of you and couldn't bear to give up either, so, I decided to truly love both of you, he continued.
While we were still in shock, he went on. I thought it was a trial given by God, and I've made both of you happy. So what's wrong with that, as if he were the protagonist of some tragedy? Watching him say this, my tears naturally dried up.
You told me, and her too, that some crazy woman was bothering you, right?
That you sent her back to her parents to protect her from that person. When I pointed this out, he averted his eyes and said, I thought both of you would be hurt if you knew the truth.
So now you frame your wife as dangerous and try to get me to move away. Don't joke with me.
At that point, I couldn't hold back anymore and yelled at him. Jessica and my brother both said, we've never met anyone with such outrageous ideas.
Lying is a sign that you know you're doing something wrong, right?
You say you've made us both happy, you've made me complicit in your infidelity. Despite having a child with his official wife, he kept making plausible excuses to me, and his cunning infuriated me.
But, I just love both of you, why can't you understand that?
This time, my husband exaggeratedly furrowed his brows and began to look sad. Despite my confrontations, it seemed to have no effect on him. He showed no signs of remorse. Realizing that talking to him was futile, Jessica quietly presented a divorce paper. She declared, I will formally demand alimony and child support. Pay it all at once, and from now on, stay out of my and my child's life.
If you hadn't made a fuss, everything would have been fine, but fine, I understand, he said.
Surprisingly, my husband accepted the divorce smoothly. However, the moment he signed the divorce paper and stamped it, he blurted out something dreadful.
Good, I'm finally done with her, now, we can finally be happy together.
He said, turning back to me with a calm smile. I felt a chill run down my spine at his sudden change of demeanor, and I wasn't the only one.
This time, let's properly register and become husband and wife.
He said with a smile, the expression no different from the one he always gave me.
What are you talking about?
Was all I could manage to reply.
Since Jessica has chosen to divorce because my love didn't reach her.
Loving only you should be no problem, right? So, let's go file the marriage registration now, he declared seriously. My sadness turned into anger, and then disgust and fear overwhelmed me. Is it this frightening to communicate but not be understood? I had never felt anything like this before. As my husband reached out to embrace me, I froze in terror and couldn't escape. My brother quickly intervened, shouting, enough already.
Shut up, you're also interfering too much, don't mess with our love.
My husband yelled back, suddenly furious. I no longer recognized the man in front of me, and now, fear brought tears to my eyes.
Just stop it, I already have a lawyer too. I will sue you for marriage fraud.
I managed to say, staring him down firmly.
From now on, please communicate through my lawyer. If you harass me, I will call the police, I declared.
Wait, I was going to divorce Jessica properly.
He pleaded.
It doesn't matter anymore. Understand that deceiving people to love multiple ones is wrong.
Why, I don't understand, don't leave me alone.
He cried, collapsing to his knees and beginning to sob. I should be the one crying here, I thought to myself.
Jessica, let's not go through with the divorce after all.
Our baby will be born soon, and it would be sad for them not to have a father. My husband pleaded, his face a mess of tears and snot, now directed at Jessica. The sight of a grown man crying and clinging to a woman's feet, along with Jessica's disgusted expression, is something I'll never forget. Jessica pushed him away, saying, disgusting, don't touch me or the child, and kicked him. My brother and I, carried by momentum, then pushed my husband out of the house. He made a scene outside the door for a while. But when I threatened to call the police and told him, don't ever think about love or marriage again, he slowly walked away. Afterward, Jessica's divorce was finalized smoothly. She demanded $30,000 in alimony and $120,000 in child support, all of which she asked to be paid in one lump sum. Naturally, this news spread to her family's hospital, and my husband quickly lost all the trust he had built up. As for me, I filed my own lawsuit against him and demanded 2 million yen in damages. My ex-husband drained his savings and went into debt to pay these sums. But rumors of his two-timing spread quickly at his workplace, and he was forced to resign. There had been rumors that his parents were doctors living far away, but whether that was ever true is now irrelevant to me. Ultimately, having lost his job, trust, and family, my ex-husband now works multiple part-time jobs, tirelessly working day and night to pay off his debts. Jessica gave birth to a healthy baby girl and soon returned to her nursing job. She's now living near her parents, working hard as a single mother raising her child. As for me, I returned to my family home and started living with my brother, continuing my work as a remote programmer. For now, I'm taking my time to cherish my own moments of peace.